a lot of food colorings are water-based, and that can seize chocolate. If you've ever melted chocolate, you know you have to keep the water away from it. It'll seize it up and make it a paste, and that's no good. So you want to make sure that you have oil-based color if you're doing that. But, you know, you make your frostings or whatever, you can use the water color, the water-based colors and everything. And actually, these candy melts that I got, they already have colors, so that makes it a lot easier. I think I'm just about at the end of the presentation now, but I will open it up to any kind of questions, or maybe I totally skipped something, and you can call me out on it. Meg?
If you didn't have a KitchenAid, what would you use to mix the eggs?
You could use a... There's a quarter under the hole.
Next question.
So, the KitchenAid, I'm very, lucky to be able to have one. Not every kitchen can have one, but you can use a hand mixer. That's fine. It does take about 6 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes to get those egg whites to stiff peaks like that, so it doesn't come out. If you don't have anything electric, you're looking at 15 minutes of hand whisking. So it is, it's a good workout. But depends on how much you really want that sponge cake. But yeah, that's why I use this. And this induction burner over here, clearly you don't need to use it. I'm just using it because it's a hotel room and I probably don't want an open flame. But double boiler on the stove works fine with that. Any other questions? Yes?
How long have you been cooking?
I have been cooking for, I guess it's 9 years this year. I went to culinary school in my hometown, and I've been working in restaurants for just about that long. Before that, I was actually a chemistry major. It's a little different, but it's kind of the same too. So there's a lot of food science and the intricacies of like how these molecules interact with each other, and then how exactly the cakes differ, or what happens when you put more sugar in a cake or less sugar in a cake, because of how that sucrose bonds with the gluten. I could get really nerdy like that.
Question?
Yeah.
Did you do a lot of research into Victorian cooking, and in that, did you find that there were any sort of like flavor profiles were preferred then that we would just not understand or appreciate?
I know that people like their anise flavors. You don't see that a lot now. Actually, I'm a big fan of absinthe, but none of my friends. So that's one. There's a lot of, they used a lot of berries and things that you could get wherever they were. I'm doing fruit tarts for the Neo-Victorian high tea, and those have kiwis on it. That is probably something that they wouldn't have just because it would be prohibitively expensive back then. But nothing too outlandish, really. It was more like things like floating island, Île Flottante, or like baked Alaska, like very elaborate desserts that you don't see in You go to a restaurant, you get cheesecake, flourless chocolate cake, and tiramisu. It's pretty much in every restaurant. You don't get, like a souffle would be very popular back then, but you need to go to the more high-priced kind of places because it just takes longer than the expected 2 minutes nowadays. But yeah, that's what I found there. And I love doing those desserts. I did a month at my restaurant where all I did was like really over-the-top French desserts. I didn't have that much work to do, so. And it is fun to go back into those old cookbooks. Usually you can find a couple good ones at a old bookstore. They have a mountain of them, and look at what people used to do, and try it out for yourself. Yeah.
Cake flour versus all-purpose flour, is it worth the investment?
Yes. cake flour is, so the different flours have different protein contents, more like a percentage gluten. So you got your bread flour on one side, which is very glutinous, and it'll give you a hard texture, and then you have your cake flour on the soft side. But in addition to just having low gluten, it also has cornstarch in it. So, and that might sound weird, but I mean, flour is just wheat starch, so it's not that. It has cornstarch in it, and it's also processed. I believe it's processed with some alkaline to help foaming. It's escaping me the particulars right now, but cake flour is definitely a different animal from other flours.
Would you use it in this recipe?
I did use it in this recipe just because I didn't want to buy cake flour. But for the ones you're eating, I did use cake flour. I do think it is worth the investment. Usually get them in 2-pound boxes. And that's usually.
For the chocolate cake, of course,
Mm-hmm.
do you like shave a block, or do you have a cocoa powder that you use to make the cake?
The chocolate sponge cake was melted chocolate. So in the actual cake layer, and the coating was a chocolate coating. So I didn't use a block to shave it off. But I mean, you certainly could, especially if you have like a really good chocolate you want to use. That's fine. But some people, I wanted to make sure that the palette was pretty middle, because I mean, some of those dark chocolates, when you get up to 70% cocoa, or it just gets a little bitter. I didn't want to scare anyone.
I would have liked those.
How are we doing on time?
12:27. So yeah, right, yeah.
Just about time. If anyone wants to grab another one, there are still stuff up there. If you want to come up and talk close up, or ask me a question you might be embarrassed to ask in front of everyone, I'll be right here cleaning up. But I really am beside myself with the turnout, and I appreciate everyone indulging me on this very experimental kind of panel. I've never presented before like this. I've done a career day, middle school, and they like the meringue thing. I hold the bowl, and then I grab it and I torch it, and people like kids love that. I don't think they would let me have a torch in here. Doing something like this where it's demonstration class. I'm basically trying to channel a cooking show into a convention space, and it'll work. Every time I am learning, but yeah, this is only the one yesterday was my first foray. This is the second, so hopefully I'm going to get better, and I can do this next year too, maybe with some refinement, and I have a bunch more topics I want to do more than just the 3 you saw this year. I want to do some like Far East, mostly Indian desserts. That's kind of steampunk, exploring the new world and bringing back spices and new cooking techniques. And I feel like that would be very interesting. So look forward to that next year, hopefully, if everyone likes it. And tomorrow, I do have a panel. It is Sunday, so I know most people are got to head out, but it is going to be puff pastry and choux pastry, which is cream puffs and eclairs, and that's going to be like how steam literally powers these desserts to help them expand.
What time is that for?
Is that tomorrow?